Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be focusing on a very recent and deeply tragic event.
Hmm.
The Air India Flight AI-171 crash. You might have seen it referred to as the India 2025 airline mishap.
Right.
Our mission here, like always, is to really sift through the reports, the investigations, what witnesses saw,
Yeah.
and get to those critical details. We want to pull out the core insights so that you can quickly get well-informed about what really happened.
And there's quite a bit to synthesize for this deep dive. We've gathered a whole collection of recent reports, updates from the investigation, even some eyewitness accounts.
Okay.
It's a really significant aviation incident. And happening so recently, just this past June 2025, well, there are just many layers to unpack and try to connect.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning then. Let's set the scene.
Good idea.
We're talking about Air India Flight 171. The call sign was AI-171,
Mm-hmm.
and it was operated by a Boeing 7878 Dreamliner. The registration was VTANB.
Okay, the Dreamliner.
Its intended route, this was June 12th, 2025, was a pretty long one. Starting in Ahmedabad, flying all the way to London Gatwick.
Yeah, long haul. But what's just so devastating is how fast everything went wrong after takeoff.
How fast are we talking?
I mean, the plane crashed just seconds after leaving the runway.
Yeah,
Specifically around 1:38 p.m. Indian Standard Time.
seconds. Wow.
Yeah. And it was only at an altitude of about 625 feet. Barely up.
That's incredibly low.
Exactly. And the impact location, it's just off. It plunged directly into a student hostel.
Oh, no.
Yeah, near BJ Medical College in Magani Nagar, Ahmedabad. So the immediate question, for investigators was, what sequence of events, what failures could possibly lead to something so rapid, so catastrophic right after getting airborne?
It's hard to even imagine. And the human cost.
Yeah.
It's just staggering.
Let's talk about the numbers on board.
Okay.
There were 242 people total on that flight. That breaks down to 230 passengers and 12 crew members.
Right.
And the stark reality is 241 of them were killed.
Just one survivor on board. One survivor. It's almost unbelievable amidst that level of just complete devastation.
It really is. And that sole survivor, identified as Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, a British Indian passenger,
Mhm.
he apparently survived with only minor injuries. There were reports, observations of him walking calmly away from the wreckage.
Inch away after that.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, surviving a crash of that magnitude, it's almost unheard of in aviation history. It's truly extraordinary in the saddest possible way.
And the tragedy didn't end with the plane itself. You mentioned it hit a student hostel.
Yes.
So there were casualties on the ground, too.
That's right. Another layer of heartbreak. Reports indicate that somewhere between 38 and perhaps over 60 people were killed among the college residents,
Oh, it's just...
and many more injured besides. So when you combine those figures, the total death toll for this incident is somewhere in the range of 270, maybe up to over 279 victims. Just devastating.
Devastating is the only word.
And the wider human response, it really underscored the scale of this. We saw the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, and the Aviation Minister, Kinjarapu, both visiting the site,
Right.
both calling it saddening. It feels like an understatement, frankly.
Understandably.
And the rescue efforts were huge. Multiple teams involved, the NDRF, CISF, local responders, just a massive operation.
Yeah.
And because of the sheer number of victims, DNA testing became essential for identification, a grim necessity.
A grim necessity, absolutely. Okay, so with the scale of the human tragedy clear, let's shift focus to the investigation. How did they start trying to figure out what went wrong?
Right.
This is where the black boxes come in, isn't it? They're crucial.
Absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
And investigators were remarkably quick here. They recovered the flight data recorder, the FDR, within just 28 hours.
That's fast.
Very. And the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, followed soon after.
And these recordings, they offer the first real clues, right?
Exactly. They provided immediate and frankly chilling insights.
Yeah.
From the CVR, we know the pilots made a Mayday call.
A mayday.
Yes. Reporting, and this is the direct quote apparently, Mayday, no power. This was during the last 36 seconds of the flight.
No power. Just, wow. That single phrase gives you such a critical, real-time glimpse into those final desperate moments.
It absolutely does. It
Yeah.
points immediately to a catastrophic failure of some kind.
So no power. What are the main theories the investigators are looking at for that? I mean, a total power loss right after takeoff.
Well, the leading hypothesis, the primary theory right now, is a dual-engine thrust loss.
Meaning both engines failed at the same time.
Essentially, yes, simultaneously or near simultaneously.
Yeah.
So they're exploring the potential causes for that. Could it be a major bird strike affecting both engines?
Possible, I suppose.
Possible, though perhaps less likely for a simultaneous failure. Mechanical failure within the engines themselves, definitely a focus.
Hmm.
Or perhaps issues with the fuel system, contamination, starvation, something like that.
Are they ruling anything out yet?
At this stage, it's mostly about gathering all the evidence.
Yeah.
You don't want to rule things out too early. They need to examine the engines, the fuel, the data, piece it all together.
Okay. And there was something else, wasn't there? Something visual.
Ah, yes. A really crucial piece of visual evidence came from video footage taken from the ground.
What did it show?
It showed the ram air turbine, the RAT, deployed from the aircraft.
The RAT. Explain what that means.
Okay, so the RAT is basically a small emergency propeller-driven generator. It deploys automatically, or can be deployed manually, if the aircraft loses all primary electrical power and backup power from the auxiliary power unit, the APU.
So seeing it deployed means...
Aviation experts confirmed it.
Yeah.
Seeing the RA deployed is direct evidence of a total or near total loss of primary electrical and hydraulic power. It's the aircraft's last resort for essential flight controls and instruments.
So the no power call and the deployed RA8, they really point strongly towards a complete power systems failure.
They fit together perfectly, yes. It paints a picture of a massive electrical and likely engine power failure very early in the flight.
And beyond the power loss, there were other issues affecting the plane's ability to even fly, right? Aerodynamic problems.
That's another critical factor, yes.
Yes.
The sources indicate that the plane's flaps were not deployed.
Not deployed, but aren't flaps essential for takeoff to generate lift?
Absolutely essential, especially at low speeds like just after takeoff.
Mm-hmm.
They increase the wing's surface area and curvature, generating much-needed lift.
And also, the landing gear was still down.
Correct. The landing gear remained extended, which, creates significant drag.
So no flaps for lift and extra drag from the landing gear.
Exactly. These are major lift issues. They would have severely hampered the aircraft's ability to climb and maintain airspeed.
So it's like the plane was fighting itself.
In a way, yes. Eyewitness videos and expert analysis of those videos apparently show the nose pitched up quite high.
Trying to climb.
Trying to climb, but with the undercarriage still down, indicating stalled thrust, likely from the engine issue, and this probable flap misconfiguration.
Wow.
It really raises that crucial question. What happens when multiple critical systems, power, lift augmentation, fail or are misconfigured during the most critical phase of flight? Takeoff. It's a recipe for disaster.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And the consequences, the repercussions, they started almost immediately, didn't they, on the regulatory side?
Yes, very quickly. India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation, the DGCA,
Mm-hmm.
they ordered immediate inspections of all Boeing 787-8 aircraft operating in India right after the incident.
A precautionary measure, obviously.
Absolutely. Standard procedure after a major incident involving a specific aircraft type, you need to ensure there isn't a wider systemic issue.
And what about the corporate and financial fallout for Air India, for Boeing?
Significant. Air India, which is owned by Tata,
Right.
they acted swiftly, offered compensation of 1 crore, which is roughly US $116,000 per deceased passenger, and also committed to covering medical expenses for the injured, both on the plane and on the ground.
And Boeing, this must be a huge blow for them, especially with the Dreamliner.
Oh, absolutely. The impact was immediate. Boeing stock took a hit, initially falling by about 5%. And the insurance side is massive, too. Estimates suggest claims from this single accident could reach US $475 million.
That's substantial.
It really shows how quickly a tragedy like this ripples through the global aviation industry, financially and reputationally.
And the investigation itself, it's not just India handling it, is it?
No, it's an international effort, as is common with major air crashes involving aircraft manufactured elsewhere.
So who's involved?
India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, the AAIB, is leading it, of course, but they're being assisted by experts from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB.
Because it's a Boeing plane.
Exactly. And also experts from the UK's Air Accidents Investigation Branch, the AAIB, likely due to the destination and potentially British nationals involved.
Right. That makes sense.
But the really significant point here, particularly for Boeing, is the aircraft type.
The Dreamliner.
Yes. This crash represents the very first fatal crash involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner.
The first. After all these years, it's been flying.
Since it entered service in 2011. So yeah, over a decade of service before its first fatal accident. This carries immense weight.
Why is that first fatal crash so significant?
Well, partly because the Dreamliner represented a major technological leap: composite materials, advanced electrical systems. A crash inevitably raises questions about those specific designs and manufacturing standards.
Especially given Boeing's recent scrutiny.
Precisely. It puts renewed focus on Boeing's quality control, manufacturing oversight, and safety culture across all its production lines, not just the older models that have faced issues. It really forces the question, how will this incident influence future aircraft design, safety protocols, maybe even certification standards?
Okay, so let's try to summarize the key takeaways from this deep dive. We're looking at an incredibly rapid, truly devastating crash just seconds after takeoff,
Right, from a very low altitude.
with the almost unbelievable detail of a single survivor from the aircraft, but tragically, also a significant loss of life on the ground where the plane hit.
Yeah, the total death toll is just horrific.
And the emerging picture from the investigation points strongly towards, well, a combination of catastrophic failures.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
The primary suspect is that dual engine failure, the no power report, the deployed RAT.
Coupled with those critical aerodynamic problems.
Exactly. The flaps not being deployed, the landing gear remaining down, creating a situation where the aircraft likely couldn't sustain flight.
And our goal here, just to reiterate for you listening, was to really synthesize all this complex, fast-moving information.
Yeah, so you can get a handle not just on what happened, but begin to understand why it matters in the bigger picture of aviation safety.
Thinking critically about all the different layers, the technical factors, the human element, the immediate response, the longer-term implications.
It's never just one single thing in these events. It's usually a chain, a confluence of factors.
Right. So as you reflect on everything we've discussed today, here's maybe a final thought for you to consider. How might this specific tragedy, specifically because it's the first fatal crash of a Dreamliner, how might it reshape the focus of aviation safety, manufacturing standards, maybe even regulatory oversight in the coming years? And what could that mean for all of us who step onto a plane?